Manipur. What is your reading of the current situation there?
I am terming this as a failure of the state, and I'm using these words very responsibly.
This open carrying of weapons, how does the security force deal with it?
Armed groups openly challenging. There have been cases of actually pointing weapons at Assam rifle people. It has never happened. There is massive recruitment going on both sides. Among the Kukis, boys as young as 13, 14 are getting recruited. The reason they are giving is if these young boys get arrested, because he's a minor, he won't be jailed for a very long time.
The general feeling has been that forces are deployed in a manner in which almost peacekeeping mission types. They're not taking action.
The military and the security forces will behave as they are directed to by the government.
Jammu and Kashmir, back-to-back attacks, migrants being attacked, civilians being attacked, attack on armed forces.
You can't have such numbers infiltrating without the Pakistan army knowing about it. In the Jammu region, we found these terrorist groups surviving for months. How would they have survived without local support? The surgical strike was meant to send a strong message that India will respond to major terror attacks.
But it did damage their morale to a large extent.
Oh yes, it did.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to another edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Thank you for liking and subscribing to the channel and sharing these conversations with people who you think will enjoy listening to them or watching them. Today in the studio, I have with me Lieutenant General Dipendra Singh Hooda. From 2012 to 2016, Lieutenant General Hooda was stationed in Jammu and Kashmir, first as a Corps Commander and then as an Army Commander of the Northern Command. In this assignment, he handled numerous strategic challenges along the borders with both Pakistan and China. He was the Army Commander during the Chumar incident along the LAC in 2014 on the sidelines of President Xi's visit to Ahmedabad. Another significant development was the launch of the surgical strikes into Pakistan in September 2016. He retired in November 2016 after 40 years of service in the Indian Army. I'm joined in this conversation by my colleague Ajit Dubey. Welcome to the podcast, Lieutenant General Hooda. Very honored that you're here. Ajit and I have a whole range of topics which we want to talk to you about. Of course, you're a prolific writer also, so we've been reading your columns. But let's begin with the hot topic right now as far as the security situation is concerned. Of course, we'll talk about Kashmir, we'll talk about the situation on the India-China boundary. But let's begin with Manipur. What is your reading of the current situation there?
So at the outset, Smita, thanks for inviting me to the program. Great pleasure to be here. Talking of Manipur, Smita, if I can describe it in sort of one line, I think it's a state failure. Because what we are seeing today is the fact that law and order is not in the state's control. You have armed groups on both sides. The valley-based Meitei groups have their own armed groups, and so have the Kukis, which they are calling village defense volunteers. Both sides don't have complete trust on government forces. So the Meiteis say that the Assam rifles are aligned towards the Kukis. The Kukis say, no, the Assam rifle is neutral, but it's the central forces and the Manipur police, which is against us. So what we are seeing actually is that law and order has literally passed in the hands of radical groups on both sides. And so you have the people and the population depending more on these armed groups rather than on state forces. That, I think, to me is the crux of the problem. The fact that so many weapons were looted and have not yet been recovered. And what we are seeing is a sort of almost a complete breakdown of confidence, not only between the Meiteis and the Kukis, but also a breakdown of confidence among the Kuki groups on the government that, we can't rely on the government. So that in a nutshell is sort of the chaotic situation which is there in Manipur today.
So you were a major general when in Manipur and you were responsible for counterinsurgency operations in the state and even in South
South
Assam
Assam, that's right.
region. Now there are several layers to the conflict which have been going on. It's also the collective fear of each of these ethnic communities and their loss of faith in the state or in the security apparatus to control the situation out there, and that results in them depending upon their own groups to
Absolutely.
provide security. What is the way out of this? Like when you say there's a state failure, is it because they don't have the ability to control the ground situation? First, area domination. That is the major thing that needs to be done. How did you do it then, and what is lacking now?
And sir, to add to it, like when you were commanding, or 3-4 years or 5 years after that, uh, did you ever foresee that what like was this ethnic divide a challenge at that time, or that time as well, or is it something new that has happened in the last 5-6 years?
No, look, the fundamental ethnic divide has always existed in Manipur, because you have these three groups: the Meiteis,
Cookies and
valley-based
Nagas.
Kukis and Nagas, and each have sort of their own issues. The Meiteis feel that despite them being in majority, they are completely cooped up within the valley. They can't buy land in the hills. There is no reservation for Meiteis, so jobs are all going to the tribals. They have these issues. Nagas, have this whole idea that Nagaland should be a greater state, which will encompass parts of Manipur. Something that the Meiteis are deadly against. That the integrity of the state cannot be touched. And the Kukis have always been sort of sandwiched between the Nagas and the Meiteis. So the ethnic divide has always been there. I think there was greater sensitivity to handling demands of different tribes and different communities. So what has happened, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years is that the Kukis feel, rightly or wrongly, that they are being targeted specifically by a chief minister who's pandering to the majority community,
Which is the Meiteis.
And which is why this whole sense that he has been talking about them, that a lot of infiltration has taken place from Myanmar, the fact that Kukis are indulging in illegal poppy cultivation. They have expanded their villages. So I think there's, as they say, a breakdown of communication, confidence, which required a sort of a spark, which was given by the High Court ruling, which said give reservation also to the Meiteis, and that sparked off this violence. But as I said, what has happened is again the ability of the state to control, and it's not as if there aren't enough security forces. It is just that the confidence, if the people don't have confidence in a particular group. So you are finding, for example, women groups in Manipur stopping the army and the Assam Rifles from carrying out their duties. That is somewhat new. I recall when I was there, so we had this incident of Muiba wanting to come to Manipur, and that sparked off massive protests.
Yes, Isaac movement,
Muiba, out of the
NSC, and
He wanted to come to Manipur and
post accord or
no, This is I'm talking 2010, I think it was.
okay.
And Manipur state said we will not permit him, and so there was firing at the Manipur-Nagaland border, and that led to massive protest and blockade of the state for months by the Naga groups. But the army had complete sort of freedom of movement. So I recall talking to both the Naga groups and the Meiteis, saying that, look, we are here to do our duty and let us do that. They were blockading civil trucks, etc. They were blockading supplies from coming in, something similar to what is also happening now. But our sort of understanding with all these groups was that, look, the army has its work to do and you cannot stop us from moving around. So that freedom of movement, continued at that time. I think also at least the security forces, the military had full confidence among all the groups, among all the tribal communities. Nobody thought, there is favoritism or you're leaning towards one side, which is something which is actually dangerous now because people lose faith in. We have now seen not only, political leaders in Manipur asking for Assam rifles to be removed. That kind of situation has not
I've
existed
heard
earlier.
people say this that, and I don't mean it disrespectfully towards any army person deployed out there, but they say that क्या हुआ है कि हमारे कुछ फौजी भाई उन्होंने लोकल से शादी कर दी हैं या फिर वो किसी कम्युनिटी से बिलोंग करते हैं तो उनके जो विचार हैं वो हमसे नहीं मिलते हैं. This kind of thing happens when for example, if you were to put any other regiment out there, and if they don't have ethnic loyalties, it doesn't matter. आप कहीं से भी ले लीजिए. आप महार उठा के वहाँ पे रख दीजिए. They have got nothing to do with them. But when you're talking about Assam rifles and you're talking, then what happens is these loyalties come into it. आप कहाँ से हो? Are you from here? Do those things matter on the ground?
Not really, Smita. And see, Assam Rifle earlier used to be composed of people from the northeast, but for many years it's
Have
been
not.
it's all India recruitment is taking place. In my own experience, I have not seen this kind of feeling or sense that local communities, or if there are members of the military belonging to the local community, that they will behave in some different way. Forget Northeast. Look at Jammu and Kashmir. We have territorial army battalions where 100% recruitment is taking place from the locals. And we have not seen any issues among the territorial army or people saying that, because of our ethnicity or clan, we are going to behave in a particular way. I think the level of training that happens, the discipline, the kind of ethos that is created in the military, these things are kept very, very far away.
Okay. So the other problem which I have, Ajit, you can elaborate on this, is this open carrying of weapons that happens in Manipur. There is attempts are made. You even mentioned about recovery of arms have not happened, but this open carrying of weapons, especially in front of the security forces, when they come straight away when they are carrying weapons, how does the security force deal with it? Did it happen during your time when you were posted there? And are you watching this increase with anxiety now?
Absolute anxiety, Smita. It has never happened. Armed groups openly challenging. There have been cases of groups like I think Arambai Tangol actually pointing weapons at Assam rifle people. Openly carrying weapons. This is not happened. Which is why, Smita, I'm saying, I am terming this as a failure of the state, and I'm using these words very responsibly. The state has responsibility for law and order. You cannot have armed groups saying we are policing our communities openly. Then what is the police meant to do? What is this is not something that you can delegate to armed groups. It's happening on both sides. The Kukis, villagers are saying, oh, these are the people who are protecting us, which includes some people who are part of erstwhile groups which are now in suspension of operation. There is massive recruitment going on both sides. I was reading somewhere that among the Kukis, boys as young as 13, 14 are getting recruited. And
So obviously this intel is available.
Yeah. And the reason they are giving is if these young boys get arrested, because he's a minor, he won't be jailed for a very long time.
Okay.
So...
जैसे नक्सल्स करते थे.
Really, and I don't see if the state takes a decision that these groups will be disarmed. and these armed cadre will be sort of disbanded, or
If you were the military advisor to the Home Ministry, what would your advice be?
this would be my advice. I mean, you need to re-establish law and order and control over the state yourself.
And how?
You have enough security forces. I mean,
You
are
think
we
deployment
saying
is enough?
deployment plus the fact that if you have to take some hard action, Smita, then you take hard action.
Okay.
I'm saying, I mean, can you imagine this happening anywhere else?
This has been going on since 2023.
Yeah.
If hard action had to be taken, it could have been taken, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But now now let me just go a little political on this. With depleted numbers in the Lok Sabha, do you think that the government and subsequent elections happening in J&K and the increase in terror attacks in J&K too, do you think that the government is playing a wait and watch or a game of attrition in Manipur?
No, I don't think the game of attrition is going to help in any way. It is only going to sharpen the divide that is already existing. And you are going to make finding solutions more and more difficult. So whether depleted numbers or not, Smita, this is a matter of national security. You see, let's look at Manipur and then see it's having an impact on Mizoram. You now have the NSC and IM saying we want an independent constitution flag that was promised to us, and the 2015 accord. If it is not exercised, then we will go back and pick up arms. You have a problem in Myanmar, which is happening. So, I mean, let's not look at this in isolation. We've also had in the past Manipur-based groups and their leadership being based in Bangladesh.
And now you
again,
have a regime there.
Now you have a regime there.
Yeah.
So I think
Which
it's
is not-
important and quick. For example, the UNLF, ex-UNLF chief, R.K. Megan, he was picked up from Bangladesh. He was based in Bangladesh.
That's not going to happen anymore, that kind of cooperation.
Yeah,
with
so
Bangladesh.
I'm saying so. Look at the whole region and see what churn is going on, and let's not look at Manipur purely in isolation. Which is why I'm saying I think it's best that we get the situation there under control. Will there be some cost? Yes. Will it be tough? Yes, it will be. The way these groups have got encouraged now. But it's not as if you cannot re-establish the authority of the state. I mean, the Indian state has enough resources to be able to do that.
And sir, the general feeling in last year or 15 months has been that forces are deployed in a manner in which almost peacekeeping mission types. They're not taking action. And with the situation, with the regime change in Bangladesh, situations escalating, possibility of situation escalating in Nagaland, Mizoram and other areas in that part. You think now it's time for the forces also to, for the government to allow the forces to get out of this peacekeeping mode and then get into action,
Absolutely.
take action?
Absolutely. Look, the military and the security forces will behave as they are directed to by the government. Because this is not an external role, you're not fighting an external enemy. So whenever you are in internal security duties, you are completely guided by what the government wants. So to me, it is apparent that the government has in some ways been asking people to go easy or not do what they... So that's what's happening. You also had a very unique situation of the Arambai Tengol summoning all members, MLAs, Meitei MLAs, getting them into a meeting, and all of them had to accept.
Parallel kind of situation from a government situation. Yeah. So let's move from the Northeast, and Ajit and I would like to know your views on the latest disengagement agreement between China and India. But before that, for our viewers, for those who haven't followed the developments, the two countries have agreed to conduct coordinated patrols along the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh. Each side, that is the Indian Army and the Chinese Army, will conduct one patrol per week. It's hoped that this would lead to de-escalation and reduction in tensions, which has been going on for 4 years. Military tensions that got heightened with a violent clash in the Galwan Valley in 2020. So, how do you see this agreement? Is it a tactical move or is it a genuine attempt by both sides to de escalate the situation?
So I think Smita, it's a positive development. Let me put it this way. So we had arrived at some arrangement which were buffer zones in areas where incursions had occurred since 2020. The two areas that were sticking points and little difficult to resolve, mainly Depsang, and then
Doklam.
of course
No,
Demchok.
Demchok and
Yeah, Depsang and Demchok. Depsang was more tricky because the area involved was very vast.
Demchok 2013, you were there, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that they have been doing 2014, 2015. They tried alongside Chumar. They also did this in 2000.
Yeah, we're going to get to the Chumar incident.
Okay.
Huh.
So as I said, having come to this patrolling arrangement where we can now go back to patrolling our erstwhile patrol points, I think it's a positive development. So what has happened is that, the immediate flash points that were there after 2020, all of them now stand resolved. The patrolling arrangement is good because if you have coordinated patrolling, then you're not inadvertently two patrols coming in contact with each other, some clashes taking place. So at buffer zone, troops have been separated. Will it, are we going back to pre-2020 situation? I don't think so. And I say that because...
So it's a temporary detente.
It is temporary because confidence building measures that held peace, that guided the conduct of military troops on both sides, that confidence building measures have all broken down. There is deep mistrust. I think the army chief, Jamdivedi, did mention that, and he said we need to re-establish trust. And then we'll see if we can go back to sort of the normalized management of the LAC. Additional troops that have gone into these areas, both in defensive role as well as reserves, I don't think are going to get pulled back in a hurry. So I think we will wait, we will watch, see what the behavior on both sides is, see how this patrolling arrangement is working. There is also need to discuss further the buffer zones that are being set up. Are they going to be permanent? Are there going to be some arrangement on patrolling even in those areas? So I think let's not expect, if I can term sort of immediate normalization. It will take time, and it will completely depend on the behavior of the Chinese military.
Why did they do this? Is it
So
economic
good question.
pragmatism? Is it situation changing globally? What is it? Or internally for them?
So there were, I think it's a combination of many factors. People are talking about India's infrastructure building, India building up its capacities. I don't think that is the main reason. I think there were larger sort of geopolitical issues. One, which is India's growing ties with the US, China viewing them as India becoming part of the US strategy of containing China. There was also this growing rivalry within South Asia. The fact that we were completely opposed to flagship schemes of the Chinese like the Belt and Road Initiative. So
That's been going on for 15 years.
yeah.
Our opposition to the Belt and Road Initiative, they didn't take it seriously at all.
No. So look, as India grows, and you are seeing economically and militarily, China does see India as a strategic rival.
Do they?
Of course. Which is the one country, in Asia that can actually become a challenger to China. and that is India. Look, if you look at look at the history of you know, countries which are powerful, those countries became powerful because they became the predominant power in their region. Right? Look at the US; it's predominant in its region. At a time when USSR was powerful, it was the most predominant power, regionally. Pre-World War II, Japan was the dominant power in Asia, but it had conquered Korea, Mongolia, China, parts of China. This is exactly what China wants. For it to rise in power, it wants to be the biggest power in Asia.
And India
wants
is
hegemony.
not
And
going to allow that? Or what is it?
Yeah,
Do they
yeah.
think India won't allow that?
Yeah, so obviously India is the challenger. India says, and see Jaishankar's writings and speeches. He says we believe in multipolarity. I'm not sure China might also use that word, but I'm sure they don't want multipolarity in Asia. They want to be the dominant power in Asia.
I think even America has woken up to that when they thought that it was just G2. They didn't realize. I mean, their
Yeah.
security establishment. I remember listening to a radio show. I came as a shocker to the security establishment in America at some point of time that China was not looking at a two-power situation. They were looking at a single power situation, and China being that single power. The security establishment in America, the deep state, woke up to that pretty late to realize that, and that's when all this Quad and everything and their Five Eyes, all of them woke up to that.
So, Smita, the second reality of international relations is that existing powers don't want another power to rise.
True.
I mean, look where geographically US is situated and look where geographically China is situated. And still, it's very clear that US does not want China to become more and more powerful. In our case, we are two neighbors.
Yes.
And so, I mean, obviously, China will view India's rise with suspicion, just as we view China's rise with some level of suspicion. So I think this long-term strategic rivalry between India and China is a reality that is going to stay.
So, sir, like in my interactions with people, I've seen that like people are very categorically saying these arrangements are only for Depsang and Demchok. The situation remains the same in other parts. We will not let our guard down. So, is like nobody has come out and categorically said that the standoff is over, that the military standoff which started in April 2020 is over and now we are back to being normal. Do you think we are reading too much for the overall situation with these two agreements?
No, so you're right. These two agreements are limited to only Depsang and Demchok. The other areas, as I said, the buffer zones that were set up, there has been no discussion on that. I think the Foreign Secretary said that also, that those are issues that we can take up later. What has been achieved is you have separated out forces that were in very close proximity to each other. That happened first with the buffer zones, and now with what has happened in Depsang, where Chinese forces were physically blocking
patrols. Yeah.
So they have moved back. That infrastructure has been taken away. So some easing of tensions has taken place because the chance of some physical scuffle happening, etc., when troops are in very close proximity, or you try and force your way to do patrolling, that situation has eased out. But as I said, I mean, certainly can't say that everything is normalized because suspicion is there.
The shadow of Galwan is still looming over us. None of us can forget it. It's too recent.
Yeah, plus the fact is, Smita, see, the border, not the border, the line
Boundary.
the line of actual control still remains unsettled.
Yeah.
There are still areas which are disputed. So fundamentally, that has not changed.
The maps, you spoke about that also.
Yeah.
Let me come to the Chumar incident. Could you tell us what exactly happened in 2013 2014? For our viewers, Chumar is the last village in Ladakh area of Jammu and Kashmir bordering Himachal Pradesh. It has been a bone of contention between India and China, with China claiming it to be its own territory. Chinese troops have been foraying into this border area with their helicopters almost every year. But in 2014, the incident got serious for at least 14 days. I'll let General Hooda explain to our viewers and listeners exactly what happened, what was the background to it, and how he controlled the situation then.
So, Chumar, let me explain the geography a little bit so easier to understand. So, the LAC as we view it lies at a point called 30R. Now, 30R is a relative height. So, it's like a deep cutting, and the point is called, the relative height is 30 meters, which is why it's called 30R. Because of this deep cutting, this is where we consider our LAC lies. For the Chinese, they feel that the LAC is further north of 30 hours. So we were easily able to patrol up to our point, even in vehicles. We had a track going right up to 30 hours. So we could quickly move and patrol that area. For the Chinese, if they wanted to patrol up to what their perception was, they had to stop their vehicles at 30 hours. Vehicles couldn't cross over. Then on foot, they would have to come and patrol. So when they would patrol, we were able to see them and quickly go there and sort of block them, do that banner drill that we used to do.
When they came, when you're saying that they stopped, they had to stop their vehicles, why? Was it coming from a height or?
Because of this, this
terrain.
very deep cutting there, 30 hours.
Okay.
There was a very deep cutting, so they had to stop the vehicles. You couldn't bring the vehicles
So
through
what
that
did
cutting.
they come? Horses? What did they
Sometimes
use?
on horses, or they would come, park their vehicles, and then on foot they would attempt.
What
to
is banner?
patrol.
What you're saying? What is that?
So what happens is that according to the agreement that we have, if two patrols come in vicinity of each other in a disputed area, then both sides are supposed to unfurl banners saying, we unfurl a banner saying, this is Indian territory, please go back. And the Chinese would unfurl a banner saying, this is Chinese territory, please go back. Right? And then both sides were supposed to disengage and go back. So that was what was called the banner drill. Now, because we had an advantage there, we could see them coming and they would come on foot. We were able to quickly go there and deploy the banner and say, then they were forced to go back.
Is that good enough for an opposing army to go back? Ek banner
That was the agreement.
It worked.
It worked for several. No bullets were exchanged for decades, right?
Yeah. It worked. It was working absolutely fine, which is why we say these confidence building measures have all completely broken down.
So there were no fisticuffs, no pushing, shoving.
So all that, Smita, little bit started, if you ask me, after Doklam. Chumar happened in September 2014. Now that I've described the geography to you, what these people did suddenly about, I would say 300 to 400 soldiers. And obviously that many soldiers were not at the post, so they had come from outside. Suddenly appeared at this place 30R, and why I described it in so much detail, with dozers. And they tried to create a track across this so that in subsequent times, future times, instead of having to come on foot, they would be able to create a track and bring their vehicles.
In September?
Yeah.
September.
But isn't it like snowed in by then or not?
No,
yet?
it isn't.
It's not,
No,
okay.
it isn't. I'll come to the timing also later. I mean,
She was coming.
she was coming. There were massive floods in
Jammu Kashmir.
Jammu Kashmir. Our main road coming into Ladakh was cut off. I see some similarities, with 2020, here this COVID, everybody is sort of, and then you take an opportunity. So Xi Jinping was coming. I think the thing was that movement of troops at least from JNK, from Srinagar side into Ladakh was impossible. I mean, it couldn't be done. But very quickly, I think, honestly, giving credit to the young officer who was there at that post, Chumar post, he sort of quickly rushed with these people and stopped this dozer from coming into our area. By then, we had also moved up our dozer and it came and stood in front of the other dozer. Hundreds of Chinese were there. This young guy with 30 people. I mean, honestly, he's the guy who initially stopped them from. After that, everyone takes credit. Hum the kya action liya and what strong action we did. But I mean, he was the guy who just stopped.
So we were outnumbered.
We were outnumbered on day one quite badly, but very quickly by the evening we had moved in reserves and they brought in another people. Our own estimate was that there were about 1,000 Chinese additional who had come into this area. So it wasn't some action by a local post commander or something. It obviously was planned at some high level. I think there was also a feeling that because Xi Jinping is coming, then maybe the Indian military will not react in a very forceful sort of manner. But I think by the second day we had moved in perhaps double the number of soldiers that the Chinese had into this area, and literally it was like I'm standing here and the Chinese are here, so they were sitting there, we were sitting here, and this continued for more than a week. Till
Did you think it's normal, or did you think this is going to escalate into?
see my big worry and concern was because we were in such close proximity that it could escalate. So we had told everyone that just remain calm. But as I said, I think at that time there was still this understanding between both sides that physical violence is a no. So if
Who was the army chief there?
General Suhag had taken
General
over.
Suhag had taken over.
Okay, and you're talking about a new government in India.
Yeah.
You have
About
Prime
four-
Minister
it
Modi,
wasn't, it was in only for 4 months when this happened.
and
Yeah.
no stomach for a conflict at that stage, at least initially, because Mr. Modi was just about learning the ropes of Delhi. So you have a political situation
I
also,
know.
and you have a diplomatic situation
Yeah.
where you have a head of state who's coming in, and you have a military situation. All three of them working at the same time.
Yeah.
So when you are there at that time, how confident are you that if you need to escalate the situation, you need to move in a military fashion? How sure are you at that stage that you will have the backing of the forces
So
and your superiors?
look, we had forces in place. As I said, by the second day we had actually overwhelming forces as compared to what the Chinese had, and frankly, when local incidents happen, it is really up to the local commanders to react. If something immediately is happening, nobody is going to pick up the phone at that stage and say, should I react or should I not react? So local incidents will be handled locally, just as this young officer did what he had to do he's not picking up the phone and saying Xi Jinping is coming, should I stop them or not stop them? No, that my job is to stop them at the LSE, and he did that. Anything larger where you're talking about planned conflicts and something like that is obviously something that the government will have to look at.
But it's a theatre that you're familiar with, and you people would have planned for a situation like this if it was to arise, right?
Yes. So as I said, we had moved additional forces. We had the command control arrangements as to who's the officer who's going to be in charge if something goes wrong. Some headquarters had moved up. additional forces, reserves were there. So, I mean, the planning and everything was in place. But I think after maybe 2 days, we were clear that there was no stomach also on the Chinese side to up the ante or to escalate. Incidentally, one of their patrols, which had come inside at night, the first night, and the officer who was accompanying the patrol fell from a height,
Their officer.
their officer, and I mean, we were surprised. The patrol left without him. And we found him the next day, and I think it was also reported in the media that then we handed over the officer back after treatment back to the Chinese. To me, it was surprising that.
They'd leave a man
They
behind.
lost it there
ये तो
also.
पाकिस्तानियों वाली बात हो गई ना, leaving a man behind.
I mean, frankly, I was surprised that that had happened. But we handed them over. I think you would find somewhere in the media reports also that. But I think after, as I said, after 2 days, it was clear that neither side wanted to sort of up the ante or do a confrontation. So they were sitting lined up just as a distance, and we were sitting here. In fact, we were using our helicopters to drop, special rations for our soldiers. And those special rations are chocolates and biscuits and things like that. So because people were so close, when the helicopter was dropping those rations, some of them were actually falling on the Chinese side. And they were quite happy eating our chocolates.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
And how were they getting their rations?
They were getting from their base
Road.
in the area. Yeah, they were getting it by road.
Okay. How long are the troops stationed there? Like a couple of days and then go back? Or what happens?
Yeah, so you keep rotating. We had something like 2,000 odd people. So you would rotate them.
So I'm asking you this because I remember when the whole Galwan thing happened, there was this whole talk that, there used to be these porta cabins which used to come. And because some of the troops, to take a warm bath or to use a toilet is also a problem. So when you have these porta cabins coming, at least you can use them for a shower, you can use them to defecate. These are things which are there, which our viewers, some of us wouldn't know as civilians, the problems when you are deployed in these kind of situations. Could you explain to that?
So, Smita, this all depends on what is the kind of area. Frankly, where in Chumar we were sort of strung out the soldiers, there were no roads in most of those areas. So really bringing up any kind of infrastructure, porta cabins was difficult. So it was cold at nights. So people used to just sort of dig trenches, lie down inside that, cover it up with a blanket. The Chinese were doing the same thing. Big pits you dig at night, lie down in that and just cover yourself. That's how it is. And it
Have things improved, sir, since then?
No. So things have improved. What I'm saying is,
do we have the
these are
roads
areas,
to send these vehicles with supplies?
Every place you can't see how many roads are you going to build. So it's only to the main areas that you can take these infrastructure. Which is why I'm saying even the helicopters for food, we were dropping some of the food packets because people were strung out over such a large area and fairly remote area where you didn't have roads and tracks in those places. So but really it's not something that the army is not used to or
Yes.
or became it became a logistic challenge. No, it wasn't that.
Okay.
It was difficult to be there. It was conditions were difficult, but wasn't as if we were suffering so much that we thought we can't do this.
And how did they move back, sir? What did the Indian Army do that they went back without achieving their objective?
Yeah. So then, as I said, it carried on. I think the matter was taken up at the highest level. I'm sure Prime Minister Modi raised it with Xi Jinping. There was a lot of diplomatic conversations that happened both in New Delhi and in Beijing. I know our ambassador was in constant touch with the foreign ministry. Plus, we were having ground level sort of talks. And actually, a similar arrangement to what has happened in 2020 was then arrived at, saying that temporarily there will be a moratorium on patrolling in this area and troops will go back. We will pull back, they will pull back. We were quite happy with it because from our post, that whole area was under observation.
It's obviously it was a reality check right into the first 6 months of the Modi government when it came in about China, as far as China. Shall we move to another?
And sir,
Okay.
like then you moved back, and how long this continued, sir?
Oh, this became something like an unofficial arrangement thereafter. They stopped coming, so if you actually look at data, you will find, and some places given out area-wise, that Chumar then, I know for the next 1 year, no patrol from their side.
No it did cease to become a hotspot then.
Okay.
Yeah. And we were okay with it. So as from where we were, you could actually observe right up to and beyond the LSC. So you really didn't need to go and sort of physically patrol. And so I think from their side also they could.
And sir, you must have traveled to the area like post Galwan and pre. You were there for many years. Now the infrastructure has improved a lot. So
Yes.
so same in the Chumar area also. Now we are much better off than what we were in those days.
Yeah. So look, living accommodation, roads, infrastructure for stores. Now, of course, for tanks and things like that.
And airstrips, so many more.
Neoma is being developed.
Shall we move to the other theatre,
Sure.
Jammu Kashmir? We are visiting, we were looking at a whole bunch of attacks which are happening out there, back-to-back attacks, migrants being attacked, civilians being attacked who are locals out there, attack on armed forces. So could you tell me a little bit about how you see this happening, this resurgence of attacks on in Jammu and Kashmir, especially in Jammu area?
So, Smita, if you look at the first 5 months of the year, you find everything is calm. Very little violence. Suddenly, starting June, you see an uptick in the Jammu region. And when I'm saying Jammu region, also in, should I call it non-traditional areas, which were completely quiet for decades. Kathua, Riasi. So there has been some incidents around Poonch Rajouri, but
west to east completely.
Yeah. Rest of the area was very calm. So June, July, August, you see a resurgence of terrorism in the Jammu region, and I'll come to the reasons why I think. And then now, just after the elections in Jammu and Kashmir, you are seeing attacks that are taking place in Kashmir. On the infrastructure projects, the tunnel, migrants are getting attacked. Why is this happening? Clearly, there has been an increase in infiltration that has taken place from Pakistan. I think it was the DGP himself who said at least 100 people have come into the Jammu region.
Whereas it used to be 2, 3, 6,
Yeah.
less than a dozen.
Yeah. Plus now the fact that you had an incident in Gulmarg, which is very close to the LAC, there is also talk about 70, 80 people infiltrating into Kashmir and who have remained quiet for some time and have now started doing things in in the Kashmir region. So one is clearly this is not incidental. Certainly has the support of at least the Pakistan military, if not others in the establishment. You can't have such numbers infiltrating without the Pakistan army knowing about it. I mean, sometimes, people say that, the border is what it is, it's porous, so people can quietly sneak in. But how do 100 guys come with AK-47s starting from Lahore and Muridke, come all the way through Muzaffarabad, traveling with grenades and night vision devices and M4 rifles, and then come and cross the LSE. So clearly Pakistan has decided to activate both Jammu and also to try and I think show and present a sort of a narrative that, look, just because you've held elections, just because you're saying everything is quiet and normal, actually it isn't. So I think this is the message sort of, that is aimed at saying, look, the government narrative is not really true. And problems still exist not only in Kashmir but also in the Jammu region. I don't recall who was it who said, who used the phrase, he said terrorism is a theatre. So the message is not so much directed at people who are getting killed, that I'm killing 4 guys or 5 guys, but more directed at the audience, the larger audience, that look, militancy, terrorism is alive in Jammu Kashmir. We are still there. So that's the kind of message I think that is being sort of spread.
Who are they sending the message to? To their domestic audience? Are they sending it to India? Are they sending it to America? Who are they sending it to? Pakistan?
So they are sending it, one is to their own domestic audience, because questions are asked that what are you people doing about Jammu Kashmir? In my conversations in some of the track tours with Pakistani diplomats and military officials, they do say that Jammu Kashmir is a huge issue for our local population. So it is directed there. It is also directed at the people of Jammu and Kashmir to say that, look, we are still there. So don't think that terror groups, and now they're taking on a local color. So they're not calling themselves Jesh, TRF and PAPF and things. So local names that they have given, that local militancy is still alive in Jammu and Kashmir. And of course, to the international audience, that look, Kashmir is
a flashpoint still.
Yeah, that it's not something that has gone away. It could be a flashpoint. It could be a flashpoint that could lead to some kind of conflict also between India and Pakistan.
Are there any takers internationally for that narrative anymore? Especially when you're looking at so many wars which are, I don't even want to say flashpoints, I'm saying wars now, actual wars, not conflicts, which are happening around the world. Is there any space, is there any stomach for this kind of narrative from Pakistan? Ki tum chupi raho, machhar troubling us again.
Yeah. So, over a period of time, this narrative of Pakistan has lost its flavor with the international community, and you see that also in how the international community reacts to what is happening between India and Pakistan. But that does not mean that Pakistan is willing to give up on it. So you will see their attempts at least are going to continue. Whether they are taken seriously or not, I don't think matters to them. What matters to them is to say that, look, this is alive, this is alive. I mean, they keep harping, look at the United Nations and all their speeches there. And every time this issue is brought up, every time they hark back to UN resolutions and say, oh, what happened in 1948, UN resolution is there, it's still a disputed area.
So when you meet the Pakistanis in these track tour, do they still talk about Dukhti Rag and UN resolution and things?
They do, because
Wohi Rag, wohi Alap.
See, they have to present their official viewpoint.
Is it still the same? That's what I want to know. Is there no change?
They do talk about it. They do talk about it.
They don't give legitimacy.
No, although frankly, they also admit that what's happened after 2019 has really changed the status of how India and Pakistan were looking at J&K.
They don't give legitimacy to the political system in J&K now, to the current government of Umar Abdullah? How do they see that?
No, I think look, our sort of viewpoint to them is whatever is the internal arrangement, constitutional arrangement within Jammu and Kashmir is of no business to Pakistan. So there is an issue, which is the line of control. There is an issue that Jammu Kashmir is divided in two parts. One part with them, one part with us. So a dispute exists. But whether it's Article 370 or it's not Article 370, what is the political arrangement within the state, whether there is statehood or not.
They'll keep the
We
fires
tell them-
burning.
Yeah, but we tell them, look, this is really not a matter for you to debate. We are not saying what is the governance structure in Gilgit-Baltistan or in Punjab. I mean, that's your constitutional arrangements that you have.
We do talk about it because, like, when this cricket thing happened, Muzaffarabad mein they wanted to do it. We won't take it lying down. We on the ICC matter, we protested. We said can't have the matches
No.
there.
So we as I said, Smita, that area is disputed and that we have a claim on it. That is a fact. But what is the governance structure? Whether it should be a union territory, whether it should be a state, what is the government that should be there? Whether there is Article 35A or not, I mean, that really is no business of any other country. That's completely an internal constitutional matter for India.
Okay. You were talking about, what is happening out in as far as the security situation and these attacks on migrants, which we began asking the question. After the Pulwama attack, one presumed that some SOPs have been put into place. But then there are still attacks on convoys which happen, and the migrant attacks on migrants, on civilians. Also, when you're talking about infiltration increase, what is the intelligence level when we had the Gujjars and Bakarwals coming and giving intelligence? All those pathways which we knew of, how things happen, are those still active?
So obviously, Smita, when you find an uptick in attacks, you look at these various things and sort of try and analyze it. Certainly, there has been some weakening of SOPs. Let's look at Jammu. The number of attacks that have taken place on the army. In a number of these cases, in fact, the army itself has said that sometimes vehicles were moving singly, some of the SOPs were not followed. There was also a sense that our outreach to the local Bakarwal Gujjar community has weakened. And, the kind of information that was coming in was not coming. There was also, I think, a pullout of troops from Jammu. So some vacant areas got created.
There was vacuum.
Yeah. So all these things, Smita, happened. As I said, lack of SOPs, weakening of our intelligence grid with the Gujar Bakarwals. Now it is picked up. I think they push in additional forces, and therefore you will find over a period of time the situation in Jammu got slightly better. I think we should also understand it's not possible to protect each and every migrant laborer. People are working. So many thousands come into Jammu and Kashmir during the summers particularly. I mean, how is it that you can protect each and every one? The whole idea is if you have a good intelligence network, then you can proactively go after these terrorists.
Prevention is the key.
Before they're able to carry out any sort of attack. But I mean, just 100% protection is not possible. We also have to see has local support to some extent exist or has it got strengthened? In the Jammu region, we found these terrorist groups surviving for months. I mean, where and how would they have survived without local support? Similarly, in Kashmir, if we are seeing that infiltration has taken place and some of these groups are there, obviously they have some local support or they can't survive. So I think that little outreach to the local communities also is an essential element, which I feel we haven't done enough of.
So we have discussed China, we have discussed the situation on the LAC and how we are now, we have been forced to commit more troops were all along the year deployed there. Additional troops have been brought in Ladakh and other places. On the western front, we have Pakistan, which is making its presence felt. The commitment to CICT operations in both Jammu and Kashmir continues. Now, both fronts, we used to talk about two front war and all. That is now actually happening. Now, LAC in eastern Ladakh is the new LOC where you have to keep your troops deployed. 2020 COVID comes in, number of troops getting recruited every year. That doesn't happen for a couple of years. Number of troops went down. We are stressed. The commitments have increased. The number of troops has gone down. Do you think there is a need for now, for the government now to increase, to possibly expand the size of the army or the forces on ground dealing with these situations? Because what we had been hearing pre Galwan, that we want to bring in new technology, and new technology will ensure that we are able to better monitor, better fight the wars of future. The quality of weapons is going to get upgraded so that fewer soldiers can do the task which is required to be done by a larger number of troops. So are we now in a situation where we'll have to rethink over this thinking also, that we need lesser troops and we need to expand? Because the commitments are growing now from northeast to Ladakh to J&K. Everything is active, and we are seeing this activity rising up further.
I know, Ajit, but see, practically, I don't see the government sanctioning any increase in troops. I mean, let's just be practical about it. So, an accurate assessment possibly can be done by the current military leadership. I really can't put any numbers on we need an additional 40,000 or 50,000 or 60,000. But look, you also have to be practical about how the government and this government thinks. And I think the government thinking is that we are not going to give you any accretion as far as number of troops are concerned. So what is it that we can do? Therefore, now we need to start looking at technology. Ajit, it is possible. If you have better surveillance technology, for example, along the line of actual control, you can actually reduce the number of troops that are required for physical surveillance. Getting better drone systems. So those kind of actions can be taken. Is going to put pressure on the army. It certainly is. The commitment has actually increased. We're talking about additional troops along the LSC. The commitment has certainly increased, and it's going to put pressure. We will have to find some ways.
Additional troops that came into the Jammu sector also were brought in from people who are into their peace postings, and they were brought in.
Yeah.
In fact, in one of your articles, gents, you mentioned that the need to reduce expenditure on personnel costs and increase equipment and technology expenditure. And you said that by 2028, China's military expenditure will be approximately 413 billion, while India's will be around 138 billion. And a large chunk of that 138 billion goes towards pay and pension. You mentioned this in a very interesting article. I would ask viewers and listeners to Google this and read this. And in that same article which I read, it says that India allocates 20% of its defense budget towards modernization and about 50% on personnel. China, on the other hand, spends about 30% on budget on personnel and 40% on equipment. And this is something that's openly available. Nobody really knows exactly how much it's spending on that. It's a very interesting article. I ask people to read that. So modernization, AI, use of AI, something that I think Colonel
So that's-
Pavitran will enjoy listening
Yeah,
to.
so Ajit, that is where the sort of dilemma lies, that the more the personal cost and is going to impact modernization. Again, we have seen. I mean, people talk about, look, allocate 2.5% of GDP to the defense budget. Again, I don't see it practically. I don't see it practically happening. In fact, as a percentage of GDP, the defense budget has actually been shrinking over the years. So now, and that's a good point you made, Smita, that what do you do with personal cost versus modernization? So that's another area that we need to
So
look
where
at.
are the problems? Where are the gaps which occur? Is it bureaucratic hurdles? Is it lack of infrastructure that we have, that to begin with, if we were to go in for technology, is it budget constraints that, where is the problem occurring as far as modernization and
So I'll
moving
tell you.
towards tech?
Yeah, I think two, three areas. One is we don't have a very well developed defense industrial base in the country.
Still?
Yeah. Which is why we are buying. Look at the major hardware is all being brought from outside. We've had this Atmanirbhar program going now for a decade. If you look at the CIPRI data of 2019 to 2023, India is the largest importer of arms and equipment in the world. We are number one.
In
Maximum.
spite of Atmanirbhar and all?
Yeah. That's because, Smita, the defense industrial base doesn't get created
Okay.
in a hurry. So while we are assembling tanks and some aircraft and all that, MiGs we were assembling, Sukhoi, sorry. But really to develop cutting edge technologies is right now is not there. So which is why we are trying to partner with different countries. That's the first problem. We talked about the overall availability of the budget. It's not only the overall availability, it's actually the budget is not linked to your capability development. Let me just explain this. So the military makes a long-term capability development plan. It is sent to the Ministry of Finance. Ministry of Finance looks at it, doesn't approve it, just says, okay, this is for our information. Now, let's say you have a 10-year capability development plan that is approved by the government and that it is going to cost 100 crores, just as an example. Okay, so now the next 10 years, 100 crores to be allocated. So therefore, now your budget allocations are made accordingly. That kind of planning is not there. So the budget allocation is ad hoc. Okay, here's the money, now you do what you want to do with it. The budget allocations, and I can constantly say this, don't say we want 2%, 2.5%. Let us
Give an
just say
absolute number.
that here is the plan, which is over the next 10 years. We have to make 5 more ships. We have to make 2 more squadrons. Okay, how much will it cost? It will cost so much money. Please, over the next 5 years, allot budget according to the capability development plan that has been approved by the government. That would be a good step that we can take.
See, here at ANI, we deeply respect the armed forces, but we also feel that more conversation needs to be held, not just in think tanks of the armed forces, but also, I think civilians also want to be part of this discussion, where we are all concerned about what happens. And do you agree with that everybody should be involved and we shouldn't be pilloried if we ask questions of the establishment? Do you agree
No,
with that at all?
I agree. No. So there are no holy cows in a democracy. It's good to be open. It's good that these debates and discussions take place, so that the public is aware. Look, public sentiment is also a huge factor when governments take decisions. I mean, particularly today in the world of social media, no government sort of takes decision without considering. So, and it's an important subject. National security, I think, is something that concerns everybody. And
Because
yes,
here on this podcast, Jen Saab, you would be aware when Jen Shukla was here, and we spoke about systems and things like that, and how inadvertently, if I may use the word, that you were fooled. I don't know whether that's the correct word, but you were misled into it when you pushed for an open source operating system. When you heard about that, when you saw the podcast, what did you feel about that? I know you tweeted it, but
no,
how
you
did you feel?
see, yeah, you feel bad, but frankly, Jan Shukla spoke to me and he said, didn't really mean the words that he said, and I sort of accept that. So I think that is behind us as far as that is concerned.
Okay, but
No, but
this
feeling
happens,
in the
right?
sense, sir, about the reluctance. You were the Northern Army commander. Even prior to that, you were trying to push in indigenous IOS. How did you feel about this reluctance? Maybe deliberate, maybe unknowingly. How did you see this reluctance to change or to
So,
move
so
on
Ajit,
to?
let me just
I don't think
briefly.
deliberate is the right word. I think it's also muscle memory. To change, there are people who have a muscle memory with a certain system, and to change it, we face it in our offices
No,
too.
let me explain it at two levels because this is something that I had personally tried to push, but it wasn't as if it was only my sort of brainwave. I had also convinced the army headquarters, and they had issued a letter saying that please try this and put it on trial and give us a trial report
This
after
is the
1 year.
boss.
Yeah, talking about an indigenous operating system. See, there were two issues I think which were important. Yes, as users, which is where I think Jan Shukla was talking about. As users, trying to switch to a new system, you're already familiar with something. You find it a little difficult, and obviously there are also teething problems when you introduce a new system. It wasn't as if it was, and I admit, it was 100% perfect, and so user issues. We had two engineers from CDAC posted in placed at Udhampur, and they would go and try and fix things. So one is the user aspect, which to some extent is understandable to me. I had to write a letter right down to all brigade commanders saying, look, don't worry about the user friendliness. Look at the larger issue, which is security. What was a little surprising for me was those people who were in charge of cyber security, who knew that technically skilled people, I'm talking about the leadership in the signal corps at that level. I mean, they were also reluctant to adopt this. And to me, that was a bit of a surprise that, look, well, you can understand from users who don't understand every aspect of it. But those who are in charge of cybersecurity, who are in charge of our networks, I mean, a reluctance at their level was, to me, a little surprising.
Is it laxity or is it more insidious, sir?
I can't describe.
I'm not saying specifically for this, but otherwise. Generally.
No, I think sometimes it's that look.
Jo chalta hai chalne do.
We have an existing network. Changing it will require a huge effort. Do we want to do that? In my view, it is needed to be done because you and over the period of time we have seen how cybersecurity is becoming a greater threat. And it wasn't also as if it wasn't accepted in toto. For example, all the internet-facing computers, all the computers which had internet on them, I'm talking of army computers, all of them shifted to BOSS as the operating system. So it wasn't as if it was
It
completely.
didn't happen at all.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
it did.
yeah.
I'm going to move to one
And
top.
sir, there was also this talk like a lot of reporting of daily reporting to the commanders was happening on WhatsApp. It still happens, but now there was also a talk of having an own WhatsApp type of a uh, app, which was, I guess, being done by an
So
army
that
officer.
happened. Yeah, that happened after I retired. So again, use of commercial software is dicey. So there was, I think, an officer who had developed an indigenous messaging application. Why it wasn't adopted again? Sometimes I think that reluctance to jump into change, uh, unless you are a little sort of disruptive, then you are going to be just completely dependent on what is happening today, and so some disruption is required, I think.
The
And
surgical strike, sir, I'm going to come to that. That was a disruptive measure that you took. I'm going to talk about that. I'm not going to go into the great detail about what happened, how it happened, because you have spoken several times on that. But you were the Northern Army commander when it happened, September 29, 2016. And after that, at one time, and I'm going to quote this, you said, I do think there was too much hype over it. The military operation was important and we had to do it. Now, how much should it have been politicized, whether it was right or wrong, is something that should be asked to the politicians. And then when ANI asked General Bipin Rawat about what you had said, he said to the ANI reporter at that time, he said, these are individual person's perceptions, so let's not comment on it. He, that is you, the General Hooda, was one of the main persons involved in the conduct of these operations, so I respect his words very much. Subsequently, you gave us a bite also about it, ANI, a bite about this. And when you said that that certain things have to be done, and India, it achieved it achieved its objective. Whether it achieved the full objectives or not is something that I think those were the words. In full measure, that was the words term that you used. That could be talked about. So could you explain to me what happened in Chandigarh that day? Why was
No,
there
no. So this
doubt?
was, I think, it was a
Military
there
literary
was a
festival.
military lit fest, and when I said too much hype around the whole issue getting politicized, wasn't directed at any one party, honestly. Although later sort of felt that it was being directed against the party in power. No, because both the opposition had also raised this whole issue of the surgical strike. Did it happen? Give us some proof. What is this? The party ruling party did use it, for example, in elections in Uttar Pradesh, where you had photographs of the DGMO being displayed, which normally not happen. So this is what I was trying to say, that these are military operations, and let us not create too much of a political hype around
But you
around
ruffled
the
so
issue.
many feathers, the BJP as well as the opposition, because the opposition was upset. BJP, of course, was upset because here you were the hero of the surgical strikes and you were saying ki hype ho gaya, and then the opposition was upset because you were saying hua surgical strike. So
Yeah,
either way you were.
yeah. So that is, look, I think one thing that I learned in my military career is that you need to be honest in what you are saying. Uh, Advice given, particularly to the political leadership, must be completely based on your professional opinion and not something personal. So I sort of felt that unnecessarily this whole issue had been dragged into politics, and I frankly didn't know that this remark would create so much of a hype. Honestly, I never imagined it that it would. Uh, but that is what it is. When I talked about full measure, a lot of people subsequently asked me that, look, you people did the surgical strike, but Pakistan still continues to do what they're doing. They're still carrying out infiltrations. Still attacks are taking place. And frankly, the surgical strike was meant to send a strong message that India will respond to major terror attacks. It was honestly not our expectation that just because this has been done, suddenly Pakistan will completely stop doing. Just that they will think about major attacks having repercussions, just as again happened
But it did
in
damage
Balakot.
their morale to a large extent.
Oh
didn't
yes,
it?
oh yes, it did.
Yeah.
So we were seeing their hearing their radio conversations. So after the attack, there was a fair amount of fear and sort of panic that be careful, leave got cancelled. Be careful, something like this could happen again in the future.
Because it wasn't along the border area, you had gone deep inside.
Yeah.
That is what was, I mean, we were, I think news-wise, it was Balakot hai kahan, bhai? Where is it on the map? Itni dur to nahi ja sakte the. They couldn't have escaped. So for many of us who didn't know even where Balakot was, later everybody got to know the reason it could be Balakot. And there were like a lot of parallels being brought up as to why Balakot was picked. Why was Balakot
This
picked?
this was the 2019
19 Balakot. Balakot was is a known
Surgical
known
strike
camp.
dusra tha. Sorry, I'm talking about the Balakot one
Yeah,
now.
Balakot was a known camp. We knew that this is where the terrorist camp is. There are 3-4 camps, large camps in just along the border of POK and Punjab and KP, where these. So Balakot was one of them. We knew this is a Jaish camp. So that information has been known for quite some
The
time.
2 strikes that happened inside Pakistani territory. Now, these are the ones which got hyped. But you have gone on record to say that these weren't the only ones. We've been doing it in the past too. It's just that nobody talked about it. Whereas these 2 strikes which happened, the surgical and the other one, the Balakot one, these got hyped a lot. Are you in favor of it happening, the hype happening or not? Because there are 2 views about it. Some feel that it is necessary because the country, it brings about this feeling of nationalism within the people. They understand what our forces are doing. There's a greater deal of respect for our national security situation, greater understanding about what happens with regard to how India deals with its enemies. The other side feels that it is being done just for political purposes. How do you see this?
So you have to see what is the purpose of the operation that you are doing, and the purpose of the 2016 surgical strikes was that we needed to send a strong message to Pakistan that if you are going to come into our territory and do something, we are going to go into your territory and do the operation. And in such instances, I think it is right that communication is clear and communication is credible. And I am quite in agreement with the government decision to come up and say, this is what we have done. At that time, frankly, Smita, I was also in favor that please release the photographic evidence and video, because Pakistan straight away said,
Kawe mare.
No,
Nothing
this was
on
The
that.
19.
Balakot was kawe mare and the other one they said
they
nahi
said,
hua.
hua hi nahi hai.
Hua hi nahi hai.
There's
So
nothing
in
in
both
that
the
one.
cases they denied it actually initially. Till the for
No,
the
they didn't
Balakot
deny-
incident they took the media to
They
that
didn't
place.
deny the Balakot incident. They said it has happened. In fact, they came up and said
They were the first ones
day before
They
us.
took the media, but
no,
they said
if you remember, ma'am,
surgical strikes they
surgical
denied.
strikes
They
they
denied.
completely denied.
Didn't we have photographic
We
evidence?
have. It was then released after, I think, a year,
After a
year
while,
and a half.
Yeah.
But for Balakot, they said first they took the foreign media after a couple of days.
On the first report of a strike inside Pakistan was done by DG ISPR,
Yeah.
which said that at 5:30 in the morning, 26 February, they released that photo that Indian Air Force came and it has attacked, and
But it
the
has missed its
missiles
target.
hit up a bunch of trees, and there were few crows dead around that.
Yeah, but we have to rely on
But they-
Pakistani media in both the situations. And so not just these two situations. I want to ask you about, do you think it was right that we didn't do anything after 26/11 militarily?
And in that context, it became very important for the government to send out a message also to the internal audience that look, we are a new team, and we will retaliate to whatever happens in our
2016 you're talking about.
2016.
Yeah. So I'm saying I'm quite in favor of the fact that the government announced it and said, this is it. It's also a part of how you credibly send a message of your intent to the other side.
What happened in 26/11 then? What do you think? What was the mood and morale in the forces then? And was it disappointed in the political leadership not taking a decision to do something militarily?
Look, Smita, I was very I was a brigadier at that time, and I know some ex-Air Force chiefs have talked about that they were disappointed that we were not given the go ahead. I don't know whether of Parakram was still playing in the mind of what we had done, carried out a full mobilization. What was
Were you involved with Operation Parakram?
in some ways I was in charge of the mobilization in army headquarters.
You were in Chandi Mandir?
No, I was in army headquarters.
Army
Headquarters. What was the kind of advice being given? So we know that, for example, the ex-NSA has written about it in his book saying, we didn't think use of military force was a good idea. So I mean that kind of thinking was going on in the political leadership and the advice that they were getting.
But in hindsight, would you think that at that time, if we had done a similar kind of an operation like a surgical strike, maybe at the and taken out Hafiz Saeed, maybe at that time, things would have been different?
Look, I think it's important to react to these incidents because that is what gives you the deterrence capability and capacity. What is it that we want Pakistan not to do? I don't think we want to cut off Pakistan in half or anything. What we want is Pakistan should not use terrorism as a state-sponsored activity against India. I mean, that is sort of the immediate aim that we have. And to do that, every time it does something, there has to be some deterrence. Otherwise, then, you continue to do if you're not going to act.
In recent times also there have been actions which have not been hyped or overhyped or talked about at all. So this has happened.
Yeah, so it's not as if every incident, every action that is happening along the line of control is going to be out in the media. There's so many things you do, you just do it.
Other than the Chandigarh military literary festival and all this happened with the surgical strike, the other thing that trouble probably or part political trouble that you waded into was when you headed the Congress panel on the National Security Task Force. I think you must have probably given about 25 sound bites to say, I have not joined the Congress party, I'm part of this panel, and I'm just making a framework for this. But everybody believed that you were joining the Congress party at that stage. One, why didn't you join the Congress party? Two, what were your suggestions to Rahul Gandhi then?
No. So I'll tell you what was asked of me, and I met Rahul Gandhi, I think 2 or 3 occasions, and what he asked is, can you prepare a national security strategy for India? My condition was that I will prepare it as long as you publish it openly. So it's not just merely a photo op that I'm handing you, this and then you keep it. I said you may or may not agree with all the recommendations I make, and but it's something that you will need to openly publish. Amongst many strategic circles, military community, there's always been a sense that, look, India needs a national security strategy. If you don't have a national security strategy, which is like the overarching document, then how will the other subsets follow? How will you create a national defense strategy if you don't have a national security strategy? I thought it was a good opportunity to have a national security strategy that has the ownership of a political party, right? At least there is somebody who's taking ownership that we need a national security strategy. Frankly, there was no panel. It was I was there and I picked my own team of people. So there were no Congress party members in that.
You had researchers.
Yeah, so we were some military officers, some police persons, and some diplomats. A lot of them didn't want their names out. So, in fact, the document is there on the net.
With just your name on it.
Yeah, and I've written because some people didn't want their names on it, and you know why.
Yeah.
You know the reasons why.
You knew the reason why, but in spite of that, you put your name to it.
Yeah. I mean, somebody had to take sort of ownership to it, and I submitted the document, and that is it. I mean, that was my my interaction thereafter with the Congress as a party was.
But that time, the talk was pretty clear. I think Ajit will back me on this. That had the Congress come to power then, the pick would be for the national security advisor would be either you or Shiv Shankar Menon.
I think that was a little far cry, but
Did Rahul Gandhi never speak to you about that?
No. There was no discussion on being an active political member. Which, in fact, I myself said that I am not interested in any role as far as politics and.
So your interaction was only with Rahul Gandhi, nobody else in the party?
Mainly with him.
And did anything happen with that document after that? Did they call you in? Have you
for
been
discussions, briefings, talks?
Yes, so there was one discussion after that, and if you go to the Congress website, it's there.
But Rahul Gandhi has picked up the national security situation several times in his speeches, election-related speeches, during the Bharat Jodo, whether it's the Agnipath scheme that he talks about caste-based differences which are happening. He talks about religion, making its inroads into the forge. You've also said that that's not a healthy trend that's happened. So for all this, I'm sure there's a team of researchers. Does he not pick your brain on that?
Not really. So once in a while I get some calls from some Congress party members asking about something, but really there is no, should I say, there's no regular kind of interaction. I have not met him after 2019, the last 4 years after I submitted the document.
On the Agnipath scheme, sir, I wanted to ask what your view is, because now it's almost a year since the first batch is, I think, operational. Initially, there were many veterans who spoke against it. Some spoke against it openly. Some wrote op-eds. Some were skeptical whether whether the scheme will work or not. But it's gone through a trial by fire. How do you see it? I've read your articles on it, but how do you see it now?
So Smita, I think the trial by fire will actually come in a time period when the first lot starts going out.
Operationally, you mean?
After 4 years.
After 4 years, they have to go.
No? Haven't they already gone?
No. They have now
They have
joined.
just started joining.
Now after 3 years, 2.5 years, the first 75% of the
will have to
leave the army.
So my own sense is that we should have looked at about a 5-year period as a trial period, learn from it as to what can be done. Is 75% a practical figure? I think it's too much. From what I have seen, some media reports also indicate the army is suggesting
60 to 70% they want to retain. That's what there's talk.
So there are some good reasons for it. What will happen over a period of time? Let's take a unit which is an infantry battalion which is deployed on the line of control, right? Slowly now more and more Agniveers will start joining the unit. Now these Agniveers cannot be sent out of the unit anywhere. So who will go to Assam, right? Not who will go to Rashtra Rifles? It's going to be the regular soldier. Who will go to NCC units? It will be the regular soldier. Who will go to, we have something called postings like into brigade headquarters, army headquarters, division headquarters. It will all be regular soldiers. Slowly over a period of time, you will find that a majority of the soldiers in the unit in the next 4-5 years, I think will happen, are going to be Agniveers. So you need a good balance of maturity, people who are trained. If you're going to have 300-400 people who are less than 4 years of service, where will you get the leadership, your non-commissioned officers, etc.? So I think it would have been best if we had taken 5 years as a trial period. And I think practically to reduce the number from 75%, it's too much.
Again, you're talking about pay scales also increasing and the benefits, the pensions. They're not getting
I'm saying
full pensions also.
No. I'm not talking about they're getting pension. Oh, when you're saying more regulars will come in, that is true. But Smita, I mean, the government by its own admission says this has got nothing to do with funding. It's got nothing to do with salaries. So,
But they could also be joining the paramilitary forces and things, right? After that, once they finish with their training and once they finish with their years, you're going to get trained people going into even things like railway security and all, which we are seeing that we need more railway security. The accidents that are happening.
yeah.
you
So
need more.
it could. That is a natural sort of way to absorb these Agniveers. I mean, there's some suggestion that actually before you recruit somebody in the police, send him as an Agniveer. After 4 years, he's automatically fully trained. I don't have to spend money on training, and then send him to do
Police
some
and
basic
all, yeah.
basic police.
So one question
paramedic.
which I wanted to ask you about the politics part, where when I asked you why didn't you join the Congress party, how do you see this increasing number of retired Faujis who are joining the political parties? It's been happening in the past decade. Increasingly, more and more chiefs of staff also joining. General Naravane, and I'm quoting him, he said retired service members joining parties is a matter of pride. It isn't politicization of forces, is what he said, because so many of these veterans have joined. You've had a brush with politics, but you didn't join. That's a personal decision, I agree. But how do you see this trend?
See, I don't see numbers as you are saying being very, very large. I mean, to look at the numbers of officers, veterans who are there, I think it's still a very small percentage, and it's fine. I mean, if there is somebody who joins politics, gets into a responsible position, he can take the military viewpoint to the government. A lot of times we say there is not enough discussion and debate between the military and the political leadership. So if we are going to have military officers in political circles, I think it's good to, your own position, the military's position, possibly can be better explained. So I don't see, and it's not as if it's in droves that, thousands and thousands of people are joining. Mine is a personal choice. So
Do you regret it?
no, I don't.
Never politics for you.
No.
Why?
So as I said, it's a
Do you not
very
feel that
personal.
you could be rendering a service to the political establishment if upright officers like you get into politics?
Yeah, so why not if they want somebody to in an advisory capacity, in an advisory role, that's fine. But this
Active politics, no.
this active politics and votes and things, they just
Cannot do.
yeah,
Okay. I grant that.
So, sir, on this, I wanted to ask you on this, your article, your take on the Uber thing, which you wrote in a newspaper. Your
भाई मैं
article.
कमरे से बाहर ही चली जाती हूँ with this if you're going to talk about the Uber situation. No, I'm kidding.
No, actually, sir wrote a very extensive article in a newspaper. So, what are your thoughts on this entire Uber thing, which I think now is on hold?
yeah. So as I wrote an article
Based on sources. It's not yet out in the open.
Like,
Yeah.
like there have been reports that
Yeah.
all these
yeah,
things have
I
been
know,
put
I
on
know.
hold.
No, I wrote an article for the Tribune on this whole Uber controversy. So I'll just highlight 2-3 key issues. See, one is that if you look at what the Navy had put out when they signed this MOU, they had given a Google form that is to be submitted to Uber if you want to avail the facilities, and that said the officer's name, his mobile number, his email, similar details for his wife, children, whoever wants to use it. So what you're going to have is a separate database. Obviously, it cannot be mixed with the other passengers because you want to give them some additional facilities. So it'll have to be kept as a separate database. So now you have mobile numbers, emails of officers of the Air Force and Navy, all compiled in a separate database. Uber has been hacked so many times. So many times.
Their firewalls are not great.
No. And plus, this whole question that it is all encrypted data, most of the hacking is insider hacking, social engineering. Somebody gets a password and he's able to get inside the network, and it's happened with Uber. I mean, that hacker had access to their Amazon web cloud, which had all the data of drive. So one is that you have this accumulated data. The second is over a period of time, you will get an idea of, okay, this person was posted here, now he's got posted there. Where are people moving? Data on families, on where the wife works, where does she travel, where does the daughter do, what is it, whom is she meeting, whom is she seeing? Over a period of time, that kind of
A pattern is visible.
yeah.
Yes.
So which is dangerous, and the value of personal data is something that we don't really understand. There is a privacy angle to it. That is my personal data, and there's also a national security angle to it. How is Facebook using your data, for example? So they know your moods, they know what you watch, they know what your ideology is, they know what is the kind of things you like. They use all this data to create what they call a psychographic profile of you. Now, Facebook uses that profile for commercial purposes, sending you ads and things like that. Which ads do you like to see? Hostile countries use this whole data to
Honey trap.
To create a profile on you. So what the Russians did in 2016 election. So specific messages targeting the blacks, specific messages targeting Muslim, specific messages targeting radical right wing, to try and sway people's opinions. They say it had such an impact that the percentage of black voters actually reduced for the first time. They try to send them out messages saying nothing is going to happen as it is. I mean, don't waste your votes on these guys. So that kind of impact is also there. And finally, I say, look, it's the military that should understand the implications of national security best. And so for the military to try and get into these kind of MOUs is, they need to be careful about this.
And sir, like I've been told that now, like people already have, the families have already have accounts in Amazon, Zomato, Swiggy, or whatever apps are there for different things. So this wouldn't have made much of a difference. So,
No, but see, we all have accounts. I also have in Amazon, but it's not separately aggregated. Like, this is the data of military people only, which is what would have happened with Uber. Because for Uber to give you some facilities, for example, they said surge pricing won't be applied to the military guys, which means your data would have been kept in a separate data bank, right? So at one place, you have the data of Air Force, Navy, families all in one place. So what you need to do, hack, is just get that one file, and at one point you have everything, which is not the case where if you have an account with Amazon or you have an account.
okay.
For example, in the Amsterdam riots which happened, now these are unconfirmed reports, or whether they are various sources, media reports which say that Jews were attacked and it was a pre-planned strategy. The messaging went out through one app. The information about where the Jewish people of Jewish origin were located went in. That information was collected from another app. So it was a strategizing that happened with these apps. So the information about where they were located were got from the apps. Now, this is what I'm saying when we talk about, that do not use this app, or how does it matter to me? मैं तो ordinary person हूँ. हाँ, मेरा भाई है फौज में. मैं, how does it matter to me? Yeah, my father is posted there. I'm using it here. How does it matter? But the point is, you yourself are vulnerable. If your father is posted in a non-family station and you are contacting your father, or the enemy knows where you are moving around. So people, I think, are not aware about that.
Yeah, so that's what happened. I mean, there's a case of US troops doing a NATO exercise, and suddenly on their phones, they start receiving messages, they start receiving photographs of their daughter, of the wife. Now that obviously creates some kind of a psychological sort of pressure on you. That, look, we know where our daughter is working, and this is a photograph of her in front of the office. And that comes to an officer at a time when he is in the middle of planning a crisis. So obviously these things all do have an impact. So I think we need to be careful about how we look at personal data. As I said, not merely from a privacy point of view, which is important, but also from, does it have national security implications? Which is why I think a lot of people subscribe for the fact that data localization must take place within the country. At least sensitive data must be there.
Yeah, and it's a huge task, and it's a long-term strategizing, and it's something that unless each and every citizen is aware about it and is alive to that situation, it's not going to work. And unless citizens don't form pressure groups, there's not going to be movement on this.
Let me give you one more example of how much data is there. So there was an Austrian student, I think his name was Max Schrems, and he filed a case with Facebook that I want to know how much of my personal data is with you. This is sometime around 2013-14. Facebook refused. The matter went to the courts. The EU court said, you have to give him the data. I'm talking 10 years back. Right? Today would be more. So Facebook gave him a CD which contained 12,000 pages of PDF. That was the data about him only, that Facebook had. Can you imagine? So the volume that they're collecting about you, everything that I mean, what you do on Facebook, you think it's private, but it's completely open to...
Encryption means nothing, huh?
It's open to them. I mean, they have it. They have all the data.
And sir, the general tendency among among the people is that when they download an app or anything, it's just allow to
Ki kaun padega fine print?
Because nobody is going to get into fine print, and everybody give access, and you don't know what all access you are giving to the app.
Subscribe to any of this, they mark what all you need to put, right? Yeah. Your name, your date of birth, your place of birth, all basically what you're putting in your passport, you're writing in that when you buy anything online, they ask for all this. In fact, I get asked this many times in the comment section, or sometimes I get asked that what is your place of birth? Because when we do a search, because I have, over the past 15 years that I have been on these apps, I have given wrong place of birth, wrong date of birth, wrong school, wrong college. Everywhere I have given different in different places. Because even though I wasn't aware of it, about the implications, I just don't give the right information on these places. So if somebody is trying to tally me, it's not difficult, but it's going to be a little difficult.
They know your characteristics. They know what you like. From a lot of times on Google, we are typing something, right, which is something that is come into your mind. Do I want to look at this? Do I want to? We think nobody is watching, but everything that you type, every time that is going to Google. So Google knows that.
Google knows everything.
Yeah.
And it's actually being shared with people, because moment you search buying house in so and so locality, you start getting calls from people that say,
So that is
I
how-
heard we know you are looking for a house, can you tell us?
That's
So
how
it's
how they monetize the data. So they
Like
take that and give it to you.
and
Now you know about celebrities के इस actor के 15 flat हैं Bombay में. I mean, that's ridiculous. So not just your tax returns, people even know the properties that you're buying. The dealers know everything.
Yeah.
So you will start getting ads about, internal. You want to do the internals of your house, कि कौन से type of tiles you want. Everything is available.
So what happens is you type it on Google, you're searching for something, Google takes that data, sells it to the advertiser, that here is the person who is looking for something like this. That is why suddenly you start getting ads on it.
And also the manipulation of that data can
Yeah.
also happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where they can put in false information about you. All these sites can put in false information about you, and there's no sunwai. There's nobody on the other side who you can tell that what you're doing is wrong information about me. But anyway, thank you so much, sir, for
Pleasure, Smita.
spending all this time and speaking to us about everything, clarifying many situations and what happened in the past. Thank you so much for making the
Pleasure.
trip. Thank you, sir. Thank you for watching or listening to this edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this or heard this. Namaste. Jai Hind. Click here to watch the previous episodes.